Hi, I'm Adam and welcome to the new First Man Photography Studio. I really love this brick wall and I'm going to use it to create the thumbnail that you've just clicked on. Don't you just love photography? I love taking pictures using the natural light or controlling the light. It's just telling that little story. It just feels great to shake off the worries of the world and create something, however big or small. In today's video, we're going to look at those little issues, problems, and self-doubts and conquer our photography demons. Let's go. One thing I've loved about lockdown is seeing people moving forwards in their photography or getting into it for the very first time. It's great, isn't it, when we're doing this? We're moving forward, we've got that energy, and it feels like riding a wave. But before too long though, like any wave, it can come crashing down. And we run the risk of photography becoming like all those other little interests and hobbies we've had in the past that have fallen by the wayside. Thankfully for me, photography was the one that stuck, but I do get a lot of messages and comments from people who struggle to keep their photography going. So I thought we'd look at a few of these challenges, a few of these little demons that try and pull us away, and give you a few tips on how to conquer them. Now, I talked about this first one on Instagram the other day, make sure you're following me, but the first little demon is laziness. Now, this doesn't get discussed all that often, and maybe it's because we don't want to offend people or people have different capacities, but as the years have gone by, I've realised that my life is just a constant battle against my deep-seated laziness. I'm inherently lazy, and the drive to do nothing is extremely powerful, and we come up with these ultra-imaginative reasons to justify doing absolutely nothing. I used to see it all the time in my old job, where people would spend more time and energy actually trying to avoid doing a job than it would have actually taken to do it to completion. It's absolutely classic for landscape photographers as well, because when that alarm goes off at 4 a.m, it's just so easy to bash it until it stops, roll over and go back to sleep. The problem is we always regret it. We have a real problem in society generally at the moment of knocking down and bashing those people who are successful. We see it in photography all the time, particularly online and in some of the forums. And there's a certain contingent that just seem to think that success is unfair, or they'll write it off as pure luck. I'm not sure why they do this, maybe that it makes them feel better, I don't know, but it's a really negative and unhelpful attitude. I am desperate to live in a world where we have equal opportunities, but not one where we have equal outcomes. There's too many factors at play, and hard work versus laziness is huge in separating two people who have the very same opportunities. One photographer stayed in bed and knocked that alarm off, whilst the other got up and ended up capturing an image that won a competition and potentially changed their life. Now, hard work is hugely important, but we also have to be kind to ourselves, allow time for sleep and relaxation and all that kind of thing. But by admitting to myself all those years ago that I was inherently lazy has allowed me to overcome it and not make excuses. Doing things just became habit, and it fostered a why not attitude. Why not start a YouTube channel? Why not leave a very secure job to follow my dream? Why not sign a lease on a brand new studio? Yeah, there are risks, obviously, but I don't want to get to the end of my life and be absolutely filled with regret. And by working as hard as I possibly can, I give myself the best chance to succeed. It's still not easy though, and I regularly can't be bothered to get off my backside and go and take landscape pictures, but I force myself to do it, and I also then never ever regret it. Yes, sometimes I will be trying to make the best of average weather conditions, but then every now and again, everything just falls into line and nature just puts on this stunning show for us to capture that image that inspires us. I've had a good run over the last couple of weeks as well, and I'm still buzzing from some of the images that I captured. One thing is for certain though, is that when we start doing things, even where the outcome is unclear, is that one thing leads to another, and to another, and to another. So the second little demon is lack of motivation. Now, this is not the same thing as laziness, because we might be bursting with energy to create something, but for one reason or another, we just don't put that into photography, even if we might want to. We could also call this photographer's block. Again, this happens to me all the time, where I can get distracted really easily and have no problem whatsoever finding something else to get busy with, because I'm just not in that moment feeling inspired to do photography. There's obvious little things we can do to solve this, like changing genres maybe for a bit, or switching our gear out, or just indulging in other artistic forms. But there's one big one for me. The primary bit of advice I would give you to overcome a lack of motivation, and that's don't shoot in isolation, at least all of the time. If there's one thing that never fails to motivate me or inspire me, it's spending time with friends. The different points of view, the different skill sets, the different ideas serve as a constant source of strength for me. Now, during lockdown, we haven't been able to spend time with friends, but last week, for the first time in 3 or 4 months, I got to go on a shoot with a mate, and I'm still buzzing from it now. The main reason this works, though, shooting with another person, is that we make ourselves accountable to them, because if we cancel on them last minute, then we are letting them down, and I certainly don't want to be that guy. Also, during the day, you can keep each other motivated. I remember one time a few years ago, I went out on a shoot with Lyle to the Farne Islands. It was raining, it was wet, it was a bit miserable, and I was just sort of panicking a little bit that I wasn't going to get the shots and I wasn't going to be able to make the video. I then found a little bench to sit on, feeling all sorry for myself. Lyle then found me, had a little word in my ear, sorted me out, and then we got back on it and ended up having one of the best days of photography I've ever had. Now, if you don't have a friend who's into photography, I would really recommend you try and make one. There's lots of different options. You can join a camera club, which isn't too expensive. You can go on a photography tour to shoot with other people. You can even start a YouTube channel, because collaborations have led to loads of really great friendships for me now, and people I can go out on a shoot with. Regardless, if you're hanging out and spending time with positive people, it can't help but feed in. Now, number 3 is feeling worthless or unsuccessful. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about feeling worthless, because I've covered that in a lot more detail in another video that you can check out, but I think success is worth mentioning. I really believe that we need to move away from automatically judging success based on money or possessions or arbitrary numbers like likes and followers and subscribers, that kind of thing. It makes no sense anyway, when really we're all in pursuit of happiness. It's about redefining our own success and making sure that we do it for ourselves and not to impress anybody else. These constant comparisons that we make can be very damaging. Take photography as an example. If we were to judge the success of an image based on how many likes it got on Instagram, then we would very quickly no longer be in control of our own work. We would very naturally start to post pictures that we knew were going to do well. And before we know it, the Instagram algorithm is driving the direction of what we create. Photographers are another example. What counts as a successful photographer these days? I really don't think these external judgments should matter to us. I'm much more interested in setting my own goals and then being satisfied and happy when I achieve them. I think often we can feel unsuccessful because success can actually just creep up on you. I don't really believe in big breaks. I think it's often an accumulation of lots of little small successes that often we don't notice, that over time build up together into something much bigger and more meaningful. My friend advised me last week to make a list of my successes over the last few years, a kind of big yourself up list. And I actually think that's a really good idea, because so often we're inclined to only focus on the failures and we end up beating ourselves up. If you've been doing photography for a while, it's a really good idea as well to look back on your work, your portfolio, and you'll almost certainly see a trend upwards where your skills have moved forward and you've improved. And it's just a really good way to reassure yourself that that you're on the right path. We can't really control what people think of us, and it's probably become a cliche by now, but do you be the one that defines your own success. The next little demon is dealing with the practical problems that are associated with photography. I've realized over the years that it's just a constant battle between that desire to be creative and the practical problems that often stand in the way of that. I just want to pick my camera up and start taking great pictures, but it's just not as simple as that. Landscape photography is a really good example of this because it's just so hard to do and so often involves a huge amount of planning and travel and physical effort and the weather conditions going in your favor. It's also extremely time consuming. I'm sure all the landscape photographers out there are painfully aware of the conflict it can create with family when we want to just sneak off and take some pictures, when our partners are at home holding down the fort. Knowing where to go to get great pictures is also a challenge, and it varies with things like the seasons and the weather as well. These challenges, however, can be fun. It happens in other photography genres as well, like the wedding photographer who has to worry about getting to the right place at the right time and worry about the traffic conditions. The portrait photographer who has to set up loads of studio gear and organize models and things. The list goes on, and there really isn't any way to overcome all these things. I just try and enjoy it as best as I possibly can. And the key to it is to develop a workflow. So you start to eliminate those mistakes and then just practice it over and over and over again. It's another thing I love about photography, particularly from a photographer's point of view, because when I see a great image by another photographer, it becomes very clear to me just how much effort has gone in to create that. And for me, that adds to the story and the enjoyment of that work. Now, this next demon is literally the green-eyed monster, and that is jealousy. Over my years in the police, I literally went to hundreds of domestic incidents, everything from the most minor of arguments all the way up to murders. And almost every single time, at the heart of it, was some form of jealousy. It can be a really dangerous emotion that drives the very worst of human behavior. It's also rife in photography, and I think that's probably because there's now just so many people taking pictures, everyone from absolute beginners to seasoned professionals. Getting any recognition in photography these days is more competitive than it has ever been before. And if we feel like we're not getting a fair slice of that attention, it can be very easy to feel jealous towards those who maybe are. The thing is, jealousy is not all bad. It can be necessary. And if we are self-aware enough, we can use it to identify the things that are important to us. That could be recognizing some society-wide injustice like we're dealing with at the moment. Or it could just be that we see someone with something and we want to have something similar. I've done this many times over the years. I've seen someone who I've respected and I've celebrated their success and then thought, yeah, but I could do that. When it came to being a rock god, I realized quite quickly that that was never going to happen. But there are other things that I've achieved. When I first met Gary Goff, I was seriously impressed with the quality of his work, his career, and also his studio. And I thought, I would love to have a studio myself one day. And then 3 years of really, really hard work, I've eventually made that happen. If I'd spent the last 3 years feeling angry and bitter towards Gary's success, then literally nothing would have happened. It's important to recognize jealousy in our own behavior as well. For example, if you're watching loads of photography content on YouTube and coming out the other end of it angry and frustrated, jealousy could be the cause. It might be time to switch off, move on, and put that energy into something more positive. Another jealousy-related issue in photography these days is that so often now, the image alone is not going to get us the attention we may feel that we deserve. It seems that being able to communicate beyond the image is becoming more critical than ever in order for us to gain attention. If recognition for your work is something that you really desire and you want to push it forward, then thinking about your method of communication is probably very worthwhile. Be kind, be supportive, and then build your network and think about what you want to say, whether that's on video, audio, or by writing. Writing stuff down as well is a really great way to figure out what we are actually feeling and thinking. I'm still constantly challenged by all of these things, but it's important to be kind and forgive ourselves as well. We're humans after all, and we're fallible, and we're not going to get it right every single time. It's important, therefore, to then show that understanding to other people as well. Shaking off these demons feels good. It certainly makes me feel happier and more positive, and that then just feeds straight back into the photography that I love to create. See ya.